Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome all of you back to another Rage video, where today, ladies and gentlemen, I say today because it doesn't feel like the nighttime yet. I mean, well, actually, it is starting to get just a little bit, slightly pinker outside. I think it's almost like we're entering almost that... It's only the 20th of July, and already I can feel as if the summer is already beginning to sort of fade into autumn ever so slightly. I don't know if it's just because we've already surpassed the summer solstice, but it's always a good reminder, ladies and gentlemen, that the time's ending, or rather the day is ending, and soon today will become tomorrow. But what sort of tomorrow will we be in? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is in part what Blackened is going to tell us all about, because I don't want to necessarily give anything away, because And Justice for All, ladies and gentlemen, it's a very this album is going to give me some very interesting things to think about, because on one hand I would say absolutely it's the best Metallica album ever made. Not all of it, however, is great, but some of it is just, I'd say, good. But I think that's still a major compliment. I mean, if I was starting to release music, then at the very least I would sort of wanted to. No, not really. I sort of want my music to be great, because good just sounds like, would you rather settle for subpar? Well, that's my lookout anyway. But the point is, ladies and gentlemen, is that, remember, they were just coming off of Master of Puppets and of the untimely disaster that fell Cliff Burton. I don't know whether it was during the production of this album or it was... I know they were on tour in Sweden when the disaster happened. So we'll have to technically work out exactly what supposedly is going to happen. Now, I do also understand that apparently there are some references that point to the popular Mad comic strip. Or was Mad a comic strip? I thought it was like a serialized to take a very strange look on the. I mean, I know Mad closed down about a few years ago, but I'll make sure to technically go. I'll certainly look through it. But with all that being said and done, I'm pretty sure we could be learning a lot more new things here today if we just be able to look hard enough. Mind you, if we did that, we wouldn't prevent worlds like Blackened from happening. But let's at least see what we get. So, if you guys want to check out the original video for yourselves, the links will all be in the description down below. Let's begin. Blackened in 3, 2, 1, and... It's one of the single greatest openings to an album. It's slow. It seeps in. It's like a gas. It seeps in through the cracks, and it will fill up just about every square inch of your earlobes. You will feel it, and because you know it's already there, and by the time that happens, it's already too late. A fairly good metaphor for what Blackened is about, but let's see if this is true or not. There we go. I know fine well that this isn't necessarily one of Metallica's like big happy sort of songs especially because of its content matter. It's talking about basically the end of the world, disease, poverty, destruction. The sky is nothing but ash color. Every single thing about Earth is just being decimated. I would say it would be a lot more depressing than that if it wasn't for the fact that, as Metallica has stated for themselves, this entire song is fire. And look at how long this video is. I completely forgot how long this video was as well, which will make sense considering what we're going to get into next. In fact, you know what, to honour that tradition, trust me, you're going to want to turn this next part up. Blackened!
Humanity
Actually, maybe this is just... Yeah, okay. The guy just basically forgot to press record and switch it off. But still, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this is why, and Justice for All, well, first of all, that was Blackened by Metallica, and this is the sort of part where, as I said before, this album is going to give me a lot to talk about, because it's very interesting to say that, well, even at this stage in Metallica's historic career, we were approaching the end of the 1980s, and you could definitely say, what difference really was there in Metallica even at this stage in their careers? I mean, everyone was still very long-haired. We were basically approaching the end of Cliff Burton's short but very accomplished life. And we just got Jason Newsted. And we also just discovered that apparently, if you could pretend bass exists in this album, then absolutely it will be. Some of you might even be wondering why I'm doing this without the alleged copy that has the bass or like mixed in, as it were. Well, you know what, I will possibly check it. I think there's like a specific sort of song where I would love to hear what bass really would sound like on this album. Because it's a song very specific I want to hear it on. Because I don't technically know whether or not, if I can remember at the top of my head, whether or not To Live Is To Die ever had bass involved. And I think it would be fitting if it really... because that really, realistically, that should be one where bass, it should just go hand in hand, especially for what we're going to talk about when it comes to Live Is To Die. Now, regarding Blackened, on the other hand, I mean, even when Metallica were, like, starting off in Kill 'Em All, and these men were only in their late teens, they were writing about death, they were writing about rioting, they were writing about basically going apeshit crazy. That's sort of what... But that's, for me, when I have memories of Kill 'Em All, that's exactly what you see is what you get. But when it comes to Blackened, however, and bear in mind, we came off stuff like Master of Puppets, Disposable Heroes, Orion, Fade to Black, The Call of Cthulhu, Fight Fire with Fire, and the critically acclaimed Ride the Lightning. It's not exactly very difficult to work out that the changes worked in Metallica's system. Would basically just say, you know what, they could do just about what they want, and they could do it however they want. And when it comes to Blackened, there is something to be said about the change in like style, because it's not quite... This is again one of those many things I find fascinating about Metallica, is that it would be very easy to say that their styles like stayed the same, or whether or not they just kind of... It sounds like one song sounds like another. Metallica, I very seldom, or at least hardly ever in my time talking about them, have ever actually said that one of their songs just sounds like a rehash of some other song. There are some songs that I feel like have been inspired, perhaps by others, but never like a blatant rip-off. But that being said, you know, Saint Anger is still a thing, and, you know, at the very least I could say that was original. But, you know, sometimes that's not quite an excuse. I mean, there were a lot of things that are original. The Chernobyl disaster was original, but I don't think we'd ever want to see that again. You know, stuff like that, for example. But speaking of disaster, I can only assume... Maybe, I think, hang on a minute, when was the Chernobyl disaster? I think, was that about the same time as... let me find that out, because that could have been something on James's mind, perhaps, or maybe that was just something the world was watching at the time. Let me just... Chernobyl disaster, 1986. So, maybe it's possible this could have been some influence, because... If you just take a look at the bridge, for example, it's just one word per line. Opposition, contradiction, premonition, compromise, agitation, violation, mutilation, planet dies. They go through the systems of exactly our imminent extinction. We fight, we blame, we get ready, we agree to disagree, we grow annoyed, we start to fight, we start killing each other, and there is nothing left. How did Megadeth put it? No more life, only one. This is the countdown to extinction. And I will admit right now, I that's another song I absolutely love to the bottom of my heart. And I will say, I always, the proof isn't so much in the pudding when it comes to the way that Metallica structure their songs, but it's the fact that somehow in the way they've done it, it kind of makes sense that for how chaotic, like at least 2/3 Blackened was, it kind of would make sense because, well, who in their right mind could imagine such a nightmarish scenario? I mean, nobody in their right mind could ever depict the future as the struggle to, be dead is much easier to stay alive, that sort of thing. I think I read that on the back of some horror movie about some concentration camp in China, I think. I don't remember what the movie was called, but then planet dies, darkest color, blistered earth, true death of life, termination, expiration, cancellation, human race, expectation, liberation, population, later waste. So you could move this on from they had already killed us before we even knew it, and physically this is where it's happening. Like I like the fact that it's echoing termination, expiration first, and then it sets in stone what's happening. And just everywhere you look, there is this song. If I had all the time in the world, ladies and gentlemen, I would 100% take this song. I'll tell you what, we'll take the third verse, because I'm going to take this verse and I'm going to lay it on the operating table. I'm going to take my scalpel. I'll tell you, I'll get my pen first. I'll put in the dots, and then I'll take my scalpel and then dissect this beast one limb at a time. Because, ladies and gentlemen, please bear this in mind. If I'm going to do this properly, and especially because this album for me just is very special to me, I'm going to do this, as you say, justice. They can also do justice to Jason, but again, that's a different story and for a slightly different day. Although some might say, again, this is like the best time ever to talk about it. But I suppose, well, I'll get to it when I start hearing exactly what bass sounds like on an album like this. Smoldering decay. Human. Okay, first of all, you take smoldering, something that's it's the remnant of being burnt, like you've been cooked to a crisp. I'm pretty sure maybe some people out there have seen like horror films where maybe a victim would have been burnt alive, and then it comes out on the other end that all that's left is like a pile of ash, while you see whatever skin is left on their bones start to, fester and smoke and just billow away. That's the imagery, it just sets right there. And I don't know technically whether or not I would agree with the way Hetfield goes, smoldering decay, take a breath away. I don't know technically whether or not it would have helped the song if there was a little bit more like emphasis on certain words, because I know it's a phrase, when you try and put like a very strong emphasis on a word. I'm just gonna have to look this up again. I need to do this right. Strengthening of words, typography. No, that's not it. No, not punctuation, but well, actually, maybe some punctuation could have worked here. Like maybe putting exclamation points, saying that isn't this horrific, or isn't this meant to like shock? Syntax, or is it like emphasis? Something. I know it's meant to be like synopsis, or something like that. But you get the idea, and I would challenge someone out there to sort of like put that into motion as to what that would sound like, because I think if you can do it or change again, it's changing smaller things like that on songs like this that could almost like I would say elevate this song. I mean, I get the idea about why they would want to do it, because they're just trying to scream aloud that the whole world is literally fucked and there's nothing to do but just say exactly what you see. Hetfield has always had a good flair for visuals, but I think like the thing I would do if I was in his situation is write it down again, and then I don't know, is it bad that I'm trying to like maybe look for things to say that maybe I would say I would do different, or whether I'm just trying to find faults for when realistically there are none? I mean, I think there are things I would change, but at the same time I'm not too sure if it would sound as good as it would if it did. That, I know it's a strange one, isn't it? Take a breath away. Millions of our years in minutes disappears. Darkening in vain. Decadence remains. All is said and done. Never is the sun. Never. I mean, I would almost immediately say I do like just basically the runoff of AABB, AABB. It's very simple. It's easy to follow, and in many ways, that's the thing. I think that's the great illusion, is that it will draw you in without you even realizing it, and maybe that's when it sort of becomes a little bit less frightening. The fact is that it's not too outrageous, but it's sort of very subtle in how it draws you in and then spits you back out again. But at the same time, you are so unconsciously aware of the horribleness of what's happening. You just kind of go with it. We've become so numb to seeing storied works of violence, of apocalyptic worlds. I mean, wasn't that what like parts of Clockwork Orange were about, where nobody would pay attention to law and order anymore, and we've become so numb to violence that we don't find it shocking. And I also, you could say the super injunction of Blackened, I think that's the right word, of how Blackened, or rather Blackest, or it's not so much that this is as far down the road as you can go, but this is like blackened, like getting a black eye. It's like bruised, but scarred is almost the better phrase to put it. We have virtually scarred the planet. It's still, some might say it's still redeemable, but unfortunately, like the whole surgeon thing I did, that analogy I did earlier, this is the one where this is sort of like trying to do an autopsy rather than a surgery. It's dead, and there is absolutely nothing we can do about it, because what you have to bear those sort of things in mind, ladies and gentlemen, is that once life on this earth stops, can we actually start it up again? Some might say that no, that's simply not possible, and maybe there is some point to that. However, unless the world is going to end tomorrow, I think there are slightly more better things from my point of view I could be worrying about right now. So that's just my suggestion. Aside from that, ladies and gentlemen, Blackened, for an opener to And Justice for All, it's definitely a very strong one. It's not necessarily their greatest, because Hit the Lights is still one of the most explosive and high-octane beginnings to, I think, any album I've seen outside of an Overkill album. But it still paints a very morbid sort of picture for things to come. Mind you, with that being said, when your album cover is the Statue of Liberty being torn apart, what else are you supposed to think? So anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this reaction video. Please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys thought of Blackened for yourselves, and I will hope some of you guys again in the next video. Take care, bye-bye for now.